Iowa, a state abundant in natural resources and blessed with fertile soils, considered by most U.S. citizens as flyover country, and most commonly associated with corn and pigs. Iowa is so much more. In fact, you might say we're downright nuts. Blame can squarely be placed on the Iowa Nut Growers Association, a passionate group of growers, hobbyists, breeders, nut enthusiasts, nurserymen, and a few folks that are just plain nuts. The Iowa Nut Growers Association has a long and rich history, being one of the first nut growing organizations west of the Mississippi. Join us for a couple of minutes while we journey the Iowa Nut Growers Association's past, present, and future. The location and natural features of Iowa allow it to grow a diverse range of several nut species, including black walnut, which can be found in every Iowa county, Carpathian walnuts, hazelnuts, hickories, pecans, which are natural crosses between hickories and pecans, and of course, chestnuts. To stimulate progress in nut culture in Iowa, the original Iowa Nut Growers Association was organized in 1940 by a small group of men, all dedicated to the preservation of Iowa's native nuts. Among the founders were Simon and Davis Snyder of Center Point, Iowa, Dr. William Rohrbacher of Iowa City, Corliss Williams of Danville, Seward Burhow of Huxley, Iowa, the Schlagenbusch brothers from Fort Madison, and Claude Lonsberry of Ames, Iowa. The organization was formally incorporated as an Iowa nonprofit in 1942. A real emphasis was placed on identifying improved nut cultivars from wild stands of nut-producing trees. They held annual meetings, and several members introduced superior varieties of mostly black walnuts and hickories. Superior wild selections were grafted and evaluated before finally being sold to the general public by one of the many nurseries in the state. One of these nurseries, Snyder Brothers Nursery, specialized in ornamental evergreens and named varieties of native Iowa nuts.
The Snyder brothers, Simon and Davis, were like legends in our organization, and they made many selections from wild trees. Another figure is John Whitty from the Burlington area, the Winkler Hazel, Fairbanks Hickory, and there were many Hickans that were selected due to their size. They're a cross between the shellbark hickory and the pecan, and they have a large nut. There were several varieties of Hickans, Burlington, Green Bay, and Des Moines Hickan.
After the death of Claude Lansbury in 1948, the organization was lost, and in 1949, meetings ceased. Then, in 1965, a man nicknamed Mr. Carpathian Walnut, Frank Kosek, arrived on the scene. He reorganized the group and started the statewide nut evaluations. Frank helped to develop a scorecard and methods for evaluating outstanding native nuts, and that legacy continues today, where every January, the Iowa Nut Growers Association still hosts a statewide nut evaluation, scoring and judging many of Iowa's native nuts. Another prominent nut grower, this one known as Mr. Black Walnut, was Archie Sparks, who played a key role in continuing the vision of those early organizers to keep the Iowa Nut Growers Association moving forward. Longtime Iowa Nut Growers Association member Bill Hansen explains.
This guy was really intelligent and somebody I could communicate with. He was self-taught, but well-respected by the people in academic. The other thing about Archie is his influence wasn't just limited to Iowa. As I stated, he was the president of Northern Nut Growers, which is a national, international organization. He really understood black walnuts. It was his passion. His whole life started with those, I think. And this must have began in the early 70s. His early selections, his work in selections was critical. And he was interested in identifying early ripening, mid-season, and late season. Some of those were his own selections, like S127, which is a early ripening, high yielding, thin shell, annual producer, produces not only on the end shoots but offshoots, so it was just a superior tree. It needs to be recognized that Archie, he didn't just stop there. He continued to evaluate S128, 130, whatever, but out of his seed plantings came S129 and C3. Those two combined with S147 are undoubtedly the highest yielding nuts, black walnuts in the nation. But I would also say that from the older cultivars, he evaluated these very thoroughly, and he liked sparrow, crayons, hay, quick crop. He promoted those also. If you travel through Beaver, Iowa, you'll not miss his black walnuts. There's an old school building he planted all around that in his yard, and any empty lot he planted with black walnuts.
Like Claude Lonsberry in the early days of the organization, Mr. Alan Beck of Story City, Iowa, retired professor of horticulture at Iowa State University, is the present glue that holds the organization together. A member since the late 1960s, he has served as editor of the Nut Growers newsletter since 1997, and is instrumental to organizing articles, maintaining contacts, and answering questions from individuals all over the country. So what does the Iowa Nut Growers Association look like today?
The Iowa Nut Growers today is composed primarily of retired hobbyists and some small-scale commercial growers of chestnuts and black walnuts. Today we have many people in our organization that are thinking about putting in hazels. They look pretty promising in many aspects. Our organization has made an effort to make it a focus of educating the youth and others throughout the state. I personally put on workshops for kids, and when you go into the classroom, you ask them if they like nuts, and the only nut they ever had any experience with is the peanut. And once you get them over the hurdle to actually try, a black walnut or a hickory or a pecan, sometimes that's a hurdle. And then getting them to realize that they can grow them, using that as a tool to get them interested in planting nut trees and thinking about not only for their own use, for squirrels, for wildlife, and for the many aesthetic uses of trees in the environment.
Indeed, education continues to be a pillar of the organization. In addition, the need for nut crops and perennials in general has never been greater. According to Tom Wall of Red Fern Farm, the current industrial model of agriculture is not sustainable.
Well, my background is actually in natural resource conservation, but as far back as when I was still in college, I came to realize that most of the environmentally related problems that we were facing were our direct result of modern industrial agriculture. And that the best I could do in my line of work would be to defend small pockets of nature from the advance of progress. And I wasn't satisfied with that. I decided agriculture needed to be reinvented and the problems attacked from the rear instead of defensively. We need more perennial crops in the landscape. The benefits of perennial crops include greater water infiltration, better water quality, reduced soil erosion, resilience against weather events, wildlife habitat, carbon sequestration, and many more. Well, perennial plants only need to be planted once. No need for annual plowing and tilling. They can live, in many cases, for generations. Also, perennial polycultures tend to reduce the incidence of pest and disease outbreaks compared to monocultures, especially monocultures of annuals. Well, perennial polycultures obviously require far less inputs in terms of fertilizers, pesticides, and especially fossil fuel inputs and machinery. Chestnuts can be grown, for example, machinery as simple as a nut wizard, a rake, a shovel, really all the equipment you need for growing chestnuts compared to the $100,000 plus combines, planters, and tractors that are required for corn and bean farming, for example. Just about all of the perennials that I'm interested in growing don't require spraying or pruning, or very minimal pruning at the most, which dramatically reduces labor costs. What I find most exciting is perennial polyculture growing has the potential to solve the vast majority of the environmental problems that have been caused by modern industrial agriculture. And that's the single biggest benefit and the very reason why I got into the business in the first place.
Like Tom Wall, member Jeff Jensen also believes that perennial crops that include nut trees and shrubs are a vital component of agriculture going forward. With an eye to the future, he has been involved with the development of hybrid hazelnuts as a perennial crop for the upper Midwest. Hybrid hazelnuts have lots of potential as a valuable perennial crop for much of the upper Midwest. These perennial shrubs can be quite productive. They produce a valuable nut that is high in monounsaturated oil, similar to olive oil, and tastes great. However, challenges are present. Perennial crop breeding is a necessarily long and drawn-out affair. Unlike annuals, where crosses can be made and then grown out immediately, perennial plant breeding requires several years of evaluation for parent plants, and then several more years after crosses have been made to evaluate the offspring. This is where organizations like the Iowa Nut Growers Association and the Upper Midwest Hazelnut Development Initiative, what we sometimes refer to as UMD, can be most valuable. Through feedback from members that are growing these plants all over the state and the Midwest, we can gain valuable data that can help narrow our search for better plants that can support this infant industry. The vision of Tom Wall and Jeff Jensen of Iowa Agriculture is a positive one. A vision that includes clean water, more abundant wildlife of all kinds, opportunities for new or beginning farmers, and diversity on the landscape. It's said that we stand on the shoulders of giants, that our own successes can only be achieved because of the paths that were laid by the generations before us. Let's remember those nut growers in the past and the present as we look to the future and remember, the future of Iowa's nuts. But don't take my word for it.
The future of Iowa is nuts!
The future of Iowa is nuts!
Funds for this project were provided by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Specialty Crops Block Grant Program through the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. For more information or to become a member of the Iowa Nut Growers Association, visit our website at iowanutgrowers.org.